space for conversation around women's health through the lens of naturopathic and Eastern medicine. I am Sandy Ross, and this is her Earth Medicine Podcast. This podcast is multi-leveled. Episodes for patient education to graduate practitioner level. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you gain value from this episode. Today on the podcast, I'm interviewing Michelle, who is a registered acupuncturist specializing in fertility health. Michelle had her own health journey transformed by using acupuncture and herbs, and it put her on the path to being a fertility specialist. Her method of treatment encompasses not only herbs and acupuncture, but also diet, supplements, essential oils, and most importantly, the mind on how it influences conception. Michelle helps women and couples all over the world on their fertility journey, and she is the host of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast, where she has leading experts in the area of fertility discuss on tips and things you can do to support your fertility journey. So let's dive in and discuss things to support your fertility journey with Michelle. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you, Sandy, for having me on.
Thank you for joining us all the way from lovely Miami. Now, Michelle, before we get chatting about fertility, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into fertility acupuncture?
Sure. So in my previous life, I was an architect working in New York City. And years before that, when I first started getting my period, I was very irregular. I would get like 3-month cycles or 4-month cycles. And when I went to the gynecologist, he basically gave me the birth control pill to get me regular. And then after, when I asked him, what happens if I get off the pill, basically you're going to go back to what you are now. So there was basically no real solution, which came to me as a surprise. I did think that I was going to go to the doctor with some kind of cure in my hands. Like I didn't really know that I was age 17. Like I didn't really know that about the whole idea of Band-Aid, medicine. In some cases, it's not really going to treat us. And so that was my first taste of that. And I was on and off the pill because I would get symptoms from being on the pill. So I just naturally got off it, to take breaks. And I was on and off for a while. And at age 20, went to school for architecture. That was my career. At age 25, decided to backpack in Europe. I was away for like about 3.5 months. The whole time I was away, I didn't get my period. I came home. And I told my mom, like, listen, I got to do something. Like, I don't really know what the solution is, but this isn't like normal. I shouldn't have 3-month cycles. So she actually happened to hear about a Chinese medicine doctor, somebody who actually, in China, as you know, people study both Western and Eastern medicine. And so he basically had both, and he happened to specialize in gynecology. So I went to him and I found that out later. And he gave me the same day, he like sat me down, talked to me about how important the menstrual cycle is for a woman. And he gave me a bag of herbs, old school herbs that you actually cook. I came home, I got my period that same day. I didn't see him for like another 5 weeks because I just got busy. I was trying to get another job. And 4 weeks later, after my first appointment, before I saw him again, I got my period. Like he nailed it. Basically regulated me like immediately. And I don't know if it was the combination of that and the herbs, the dried herbs, but I basically was regulated and I was like, this stuff is amazing. And I started going to him weekly and I felt better. Like even at work, the stress that I had would roll off my back. It was just incredible. So eventually, I was so intrigued by Chinese medicine in general. I was something that I would have loved. Like I just really wanted to learn more about. And it just kind of like started a fire in me, or an intrigue into Chinese medicine. And then I was just also blown away with what it did for me. So it was like so interesting for me to want to learn how to help other people. And eventually I just wasn't happy with what I was doing as an architect. I really wanted to work with people. I didn't have the meaning and the purpose with that kind of work that I would have had healing or really paying it forward, what I had, like my whole life transformation from Chinese medicine. So eventually, my husband, he was actually a Western medicine doctor, he does um, emergency medicine, which I feel like is like the creme de la creme of Western medicine.
Yeah.
That's like where we don't even like hold a candle to. So basically, he actually pushed me to go back to school. He's like, you don't really love architecture. Why don't you look into going back to school? So we moved to Florida from New York. I started out with Ayurvedic medicine, which is an ancient Indian medicine, kind of like a cousin of Chinese medicine, and was very intrigued. But in America at the time, it wasn't board certified. It didn't really have the same licensing as it does now. I think they're starting to get there now. And I always had that curiosity for Chinese medicine. Eventually, I had kids, and I thank Dr. Lee for that. That was my acupuncturist, because had he not regulated me, I know that I would have had an issue even figuring out if I was ovulating, when I was ovulating. So it was something that I always kind of realized that thanks to him, I was able to do. And then once my kids got old enough, I went back to school for acupuncture. And it was just fascinating to me. Like, I've always had an intrigue, and I thoroughly enjoyed school. I enjoyed everything about school. I've never been so engaged in what I was learning in my life, and it's just so intriguing. And then eventually, once I graduated, started my own practice, and was just very intrigued by fertility. It was just something that I really loved. And I love being a mom. And if I can help other people be moms or families or parents, like, it's just, it's such an amazing gift to be able to be part of that. So eventually, that's what I did. I started learning more about, I took Jane Littleton's class. We were just talking about that. I got certified with ABORM, which is the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine, which is, it's another board for specializing in fertility. And just really got into it. And so we also spoke about this in the pre-talk. I also got into the functional medicine aspect and some testing and how all the different aspects, our gut, even certain supplements can help. And that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, it's certainly a beautiful story, and it's a very rewarding area to work in fertility. Do you want to maybe explain a little bit about how acupuncture helps to support women on their fertility journey?
Yes. So it's really multifaceted. I mean, there's so many different aspects, but as you know, fertility health or reproductive health is not the body's first priority. Your survival is. So if you are under severe stress, or who don't have enough food, that's like people who tend to have hypothalamic amenorrhea, for example. When they don't have enough reserves, the body shuts down. Like, it doesn't, the reproductive health shuts down. They stop having periods, or it gets really delayed. There's so many different aspects. If we have too much dampness, as in Chinese medicine, sometimes it tends to kind of go in line with PCOS. That's one thing, but there's many other, as you know. So when your body's out of whack, like, I want to say out of balance, like mine was when I was working in New York City, you basically, it'll start to give symptoms. So we have our patterns, and many different patterns can create the same symptoms. So it's very unique to the individual. And we treat the root cause. So whether you have too much heat, too much cold, we work on using herbals to balance that. We work on also acupuncture, which helps the energy flow better in your body so that it's able to feed every part of your body. And basically, it's not us that heals, it's the body that heals itself. So the body is incredible at healing itself. It just needs us to kind of figure out, to create that harmonious, balanced environment.
Yes, that's what I love about acupuncture. It's just supporting that innate ability to heal. And it's interesting you touched on HA, because that's something I've certainly seen a lot more of in the last year or two, where I hadn't seen it so much, due to, calorie restrictions being a big problem. And it's certainly a shift when you can shift people's stress
response and how they can have that relationship with their emotions and their food. And I think that's one of the biggest areas that acupuncture thrives in the fertility industry is working on people's nervous systems and that emotional aspect. And that's where I think we see the big shifts. And I know obviously there's imbalances in the pathophysiology, like, liver qi stagnation and damp and stuff. But I think one thing about acupuncture is getting them on the table, giving him that space to just be and allow the body to kind of support itself. It's such a beautiful modality. I love it so much.
It's
Shall
incredible.
we maybe talk about the emotions and how they impact the body?
Yeah, so stress constricts. I mean, stress we're in an epidemic of stress right now, and I feel like stress has become people's homes. I actually went to a Tony Robbins.
Cool.
It was like a weekend with him. It was amazing before all of this, before the epidemic, and he basically said, "What a lot of people have these places mentally that have become, it becomes comfortable, it becomes normal." And I feel like there's certain emotions that we think are normal. Like we almost feel like we need to worry because worry feels like it has a purpose, but it doesn't. It just drains our energy, but it becomes like this home or a habit. Same thing with stress. So it constricts. I mean, as we know, the liver is in charge of the free flow of the body, and so when we constrict too much, we're going to affect that liver, and we're going to affect the job of the liver, and so all of that definitely has an impact on every part of our bodies. Our emotions are so key. It's incredible. And I love this book. It's called The Untethered Soul. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before.
Yes, I have.
It's amazing. And what I love about it is he talks about how we always like human reaction is to resist emotions that are not pleasant. That's our first initial thing that we want to do. We want to just resist. And what happens when we resist? We kind of tense up, right? We don't want it to go through and move. So we stop it. We try to stop it. But what do we do when we stop it? We actually keep it in our bodies. So emotions do tend to stay in our bodies. And it's interesting when people get like body work or even acupuncture for that matter, like I see it all the time, and my patients will start bawling mid-treatment. And they say, "I don't know why I'm crying so much." And I'm like, "It's good. It's okay. Like that's what you're supposed to, your body wants to release it." And so we tend to hold emotions in our body. And so this book talks about basically leaning into your emotions and allowing it to go and not holding on to it, just like letting it move where it wants to go. And that's kind of how the body works too, the yin and the yang, where everything wants to go in homeostasis, everything wants to self-regulate. And when we allow the body to do its thing, it automatically has the intelligence that it needs in order to regulate. So like sometimes we have emotions and they reflect in our body, and then sometimes we have stagnation in our body, and that's going to reflect on our emotions. So if people have gut issues, sometimes by working on the gut, you can actually work on your emotions. And just by working physically, so it depends on what end, it doesn't matter what end you work at. It all is the same thing. So everything matters.
Yeah, I love the way that Chinese medicine explains psychology, with the aspect of the Shen and going into all that, because I feel like you can always get people going, aha, that makes sense. When you explain about the liver, you explain about the gut, as you're saying, into the digestive tract. Would you maybe like to elaborate a little bit on that, perhaps the organ and the emotion association?
Yes. So the liver's emotion is anger. And what's interesting is it has a couple of roles. It has the role of the free flow of energy or qi in the body. People have different ideas of what qi is. There's many different perspectives on it, but it's really life force, vitality. And so basically it's supposed to help move that. Now, if it's stuck and if its job is more difficult because it can't move the free flow because we're too constricted or too stressed, its other job is also to hold blood, basically. And so it's very important for women's periods. So what happens when its energy is kind of stuck trying to move the energy with resistance, and then it also has to work on helping them to prepare woman's menstrual cycle, then it's going to get very irritated. And that's why people get PMS. And so it kind of like, it can only do so much. And then it's not going to be able to ensure the free flow during that time because it's doing multiple things. So you'll see how it kind of all is connected. And the spleen and the stomach is all about digestion. It's the center of our health. And the spleen is about overthinking. So that's pensiveness. So when we overthink, we can actually, when I was in school, my spleen suffered because I was constantly studying. So you're using a lot of energy when you're using your mind. That's why sometimes when you're digesting, you just need to rest. You feel rest and digest because in order to digest, you need a lot of energy. And then the kidneys fear. What happens to little kids sometimes when they're afraid? They pee. The kidneys also control the bladder, they control the sphincter, and basically fear is the energy of the emotion of the kidneys. What else do we have? We have the heart, which is overjoy. Somebody who is Shen disturbed, sometimes they laugh too much. So there's almost like joy is good, but like within a normal, reasonable balance. And then what else do we have? We have the liver, gallbladder. What is it?
Metal element.
Oh, yes. So the lungs, right. What's interesting is I do actually see that. So the emotion is grief. And it's interesting because I have actually met somebody who was in my school that after she lost her mom and went through a lot of grief, she started having asthma. And it affected her lungs. So it's kind of an interesting thing that you actually see it happen and reflect when you actually like read it in the textbook, and then you actually see examples of people going through that. But yeah, when you see people kind of sad or thinking about something, they'll kind of, that's also liver, but it's also like not being able to get enough oxygen.
Yeah, thank you so much for going through those. I think they're really great for people to listen into and go, oh yeah, yep, I can definitely feel that. I'll just touch on the gallbladder with decision making. So when we have problems with decision making, we can experience nausea or even headaches, and then it can aggravate the liver too.
Yes.
Can we maybe chat a little bit about some of because I know you're great in this area of really supporting people through their fertility journey. What are some things that people can do to handle their feelings when experiencing anxiety going through their fertility challenges?
So the first thing I would say is breathe. It's amazing how the breath is so connected to our state of mind. You'll see it because it's going to reflect no matter what your state of mind is, your breath is going to reflect that. So if you're anxious, you may have noticed you just kind of become mindful. Like, do you shorten your breath? Do you tighten your breath? Do you tighten your stomach? Do you feel that your breath is a little shallow? Sometimes people even stop breathing for a little bit. Yeah. Like they're really intense in their thoughts and they stop breathing. So one of the things that happens when we're stressed out is we breathe shallow and we breathe fast. And what happens when we're really in a deep state of relaxation, or we're getting a massage, or we're like on vacation, you may notice that you breathe really deep and really slow. It'll slow down. It's very peaceful, your breath. It's effortless. So by breathing slow and deep, you can actually impact your mind almost immediately.
Yeah, beautiful. I love the breath. I think it's one of the best tools we can utilize, and it's free.
It is. It is. And most of the time when we're feeling anxiety, we want to focus on it from the state of mind, but that's where the anxiety is residing at the moment. So you're going to spin in circles because it's the same. You can't fix a state of mind from that state of mind. So that's why the breath is so powerful, because it takes us out of our minds and into our body.
And that's another beautiful thing about acupuncture is you do see people slow down their breath, especially, if you get them to mindfully breathe while they're on the table having a treatment. I find it really accelerates the healing process of what you're actually doing there. It's amazing. Are there any other ways that people can create balance in their bodies while on a fertility journey that you want to chat about?
So I always say meditation, but not everybody likes to do meditation. That's something that it's just difficult for some people. But I say just similarly, I love yoga. I think yoga is amazing. I love doing things physically, but not too much, because we were talking about HA. Can affect hypothalamic, and you can affect your cycle basically if you do too much. So doing something though that's active, or even writing in a journal, getting your emotions out somehow, and walking outside, I feel like is really beneficial to just shift your perspective. Because I find that when people are in their fertility journey, they have so much overwhelm and overload of different information, different opinions, and that's one of the biggest challenges. And then it kind of dilutes their intuition, and that is difficult to function without, especially when you're trying to make really big decisions. So I find that just giving yourself that space can help you so much emotionally, and that will impact your body. It'll impact your stress levels in general. So I think that working on the mind is probably one of the best things you could do for your body.
Totally. And when people are so used to being so stressed, trying to get them to sit still and meditate can be more stressful for them. And so the movement meditation like Tai Chi or yoga is perfect as a starting point. And then they might be able to start doing some,
ease into it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So we've got gentle movement, the breath, acupuncture. Is there anything else you want to touch on for this short fertility support segment that you think women know on their journey trying to conceive?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go, diet's a tricky one because so many people need different things. But one of the things that kind of is all encompassing, it's for everybody really, is just to take down sugars, anything that's too inflammatory, because for fertility, inflammation is really important to keep down. Inflammation can cause all kinds of issues, and it can cause infertility. So I would say taking out things that are too inflammatory, like sugar, simple carbohydrates, and increasing things like healthy fats, I think is great all across the board. And also putting your feet on the earth. That's kind of something that seems random, but putting your feet on the earth and grounding is incredible. It has incredible benefits. And there's actually science behind it. There's a good documentary called Earthing, the Earthing movie, I think it's called. And they talk about the science behind grounding. So getting out in nature and breathing fresh air and connecting with nature is really beneficial.
Yeah, lovely. I think that documentary is on Gaia TV if anyone wants to check it out. But these are really simple and like maybe quirky tips, but so powerful, and most of them are free. So definitely go and check these things out, guys. Now, Michelle, for our listeners, where can they tune in to hear more about you? Because I know you've got a lovely podcast of your own.
Yeah, so it's easy. Just go to www.michelleoravitz.com and you can find everything there.
Perfect. Okay. Is there any last pearls of wisdom you want to leave with us today?
Just to really give yourself some space and time to tune in, because what I have found, and I found this with my patients when they go to their doctors, or even when they're going to me, that everybody has this incredible intuition. And a lot of times I've even seen them say, hey, something's not right with this. And the doctor's like, no, you don't need to check your thyroid or whatever it was. And they end up checking it, or they just have this gut feeling that kind of pushes them to discover other things. And I really believe in the intuition. I really believe it's important. It's a gift that we're given. And I think that in order to get back to it, you have to do things like taking walks or writing things down, or just giving yourself a little mental space away from the noise and away from the opinions, so that you can really tune in with what's best for you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for those great tips. And thanks so much for taking the time out to have a little short segment and chat about fertility support with Chinese medicine, Michelle.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me, Sandy.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I have been a practitioner of naturopathic and Chinese medicine for over a decade. I have a master's degree of health science, and I am an academic lecturer at Australia's leading natural medicine college. I am available worldwide online for bookings. Simply go to sandyrosshealth.com.